Hello, welcome to video number 5, which is illumination and switch sealing. This can get a little complicated, so we're going to break this video into two parts. The first part will be explaining the chart and the difference between independent lighting and dependent lighting. And then in the second section of the video, we're going to explain some specific examples and go through individual switches. Particular table, you have 5 columns. The first and second column deal with the fact whether it's sealed or unsealed. As I mentioned, most all of our switches are sealed. The third column has to do with lamp number, and we discussed which lamp is in which position. So you'll see 1s and 2s. Some say 1 and 2. That would be a switch that has 2 bulbs. The fourth column is the actuator lens position when illuminated. So this column will tell you where that actuator is in relation to the bulb when that bulb is on. If it says independent, that means it's an independently lighted switch. That bulb is independent of where the actuator position is. The last column tells you which terminals that lamp is wired to. And as you notice, in most cases that number 7 terminal is negative. You'll notice other terminals that are positive. This is very important if it's an LED lamp, but we stay consistent whether it's an LED or an incandescent lamp, and we try to always wire as it's listed on this chart. Okay, switch sealing. Most every switch that we carry is sealed, and what sealed means is behind the pivot ball on the switch, so behind this little white thing, there's an O-ring back there. So that will keep water from pouring inside of the switch. These barriers built around the switch also do a good job at keeping water out. When there's an actuator in place, really, unless you spray water directly up under there, you're not going to get water inside the switch. However, what to be aware of is it's very easy for water to get behind the flange once this is installed in a panel. The body is split into 2 pieces right along this line here. That is not sealed, so it's easy for water or moisture to seep in there. And then of course the terminals are not sealed, so water can get in there. Carling does offer a neoprene gasket that goes on the switches. However, if you're looking for a true watertight seal, I would recommend putting some sealer around here and installing in your panel that way if it's in an outdoor environment or somewhere where you're worried about it. Okay, the 5th place in the chart is going to correspond to the 5th digit in the part number. You'll notice we do not reference this digit in our part numbering sequence on the website. It gets a little too confusing. Many of the switches are just not available, so we refer to these internally. We provide a full explanation of what the switch does on the website. And I also suggest if you're replacing a switch, the main thing to do is compare the 4 numbers on the side, look at how many terminals are on the back and where they're positioned, and then also how many lamps and what position they're in. So to start with this chart, the first thing I'm going to discuss is lamp positioning. The top of the switch, remember we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So lamp position number 1 is going to be above terminals number 1 and 4. Lamp position number 2 is going to be above terminals number 3 and 6. There's a column in the chart that'll say actuator lens position when illuminated. So for a particular bulb position, you'll have a column that says lamps. You'll have the number 1 positions and the number 2 positions. And then the next column is actuator lens position when it's illuminated. So you'll notice there's a lot that say independent, and in just a moment I'm going to explain the difference between independent bulbs and dependent bulbs. But for right now, if you look across, say a number 1 bulb is in, and then it says down, that means that the actuator is in the down position as it relates to that bulb number 1. If the actuator was in the up position as it relates to that bulb number 1, and there's some rare instances where the bulb will be lit when it's in the up position. And the same thing applies to bulb number 2. This is down as it applies to bulb number 2. That's up as it applies to bulb number 2. Okay, the difference between independent and dependent lamps. As you see, we've brought in a prop, which is a 14-volt DeWalt battery. This is a very convenient tool for testing, as well as our Tinkerbell pencil. And we're going to first show you a dependent lamp. Now, a dependent lamp means that the lamp is dependent upon where the actuator position is. An independent lamp is one that is independent of where the actuator position is. An easy way to identify it is a switch with a dependent lamp is just going to have a single terminal in position number 7. An independent lamp is going to have 2 terminals at the very top, 7 and 8. This particular switch is a 10 terminal switch, which also has a 9 and 10 terminal, which means it has 2 independent lamps in it. So both of those lamps can be lit independently of where this actuator is. So we're going to put the negative on terminal number 7, and you'll notice when I touch number 8, the top lamp goes on. And you notice it stays on no matter where that actuator position is. The same will hold true for the bottom lamp once we wire that one. No matter where this is, that's going to stay lit. Now, with a dependent lamp, it's a little different. We put that negative terminal on there. Now remember, when wiring these switches, typically we're bringing power into terminal number 2, and this is a double throw switch. So as we do that, as we put the actuator down, it's going to connect terminal numbers 2 and 1. As we put the actuator up, it's going to connect 2 and 3. So when we put power right to terminal number 2 and we turn this switch off, nothing illuminates. Now when we take the switch down, you'll see the bulb illuminates. When we put it up, that bulb illuminates. Now we'll get into this in a little more detail in the second part of this video, where we describe each switch individually, but that is the basics between an independent lamp and a dependent lamp.